You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. All right, Brian Kelly and his staff landed a big-time commit here on Wednesday that both figuratively and literally. Not a gigantic surprise, but still to get a player like this in the class for 2024 and to have that heavy lifting done right now is a big exhale. Trey'Dez Green, the four-star tight end out of East Feliciana, who's a two-sport guy, plays tight end, is also forward on the basketball team, and has a basketball offer as well. He has committed to LSU as a tight end, doing so at a ceremony at his school earlier on Wednesday, actually, just a little more than an hour ago from right now. This is significant for an awful lot of reasons. First of all, just a few of the details. So Trey'Dez Green, a consensus four-star. He is nationally ranked the number 59 overall player in the country. He's the third best tight end in the country, the number 2 player in the state of Louisiana for 2024. So when you're talking about getting one of the top players in your state, who's one of the best at his position in the entire country, and then on top of that, you're looking at a position that Brian Kelly really values, this is certainly very significant. So a couple of things. Last year, when Brian Kelly got the job, and we were looking at the top players in Louisiana, one of the things that caused a little bit of a melt was when Arch Manning committed to Texas and Derek Williams, the 5-star safety, committed to Texas. And you knew you weren't going to get Tackett Curtis, who ultimately signed with Southern Cal. Eli Holstein picked Alabama. There was, we had the conversation, and it was a fair conversation to say, look, you have to look at each player as its own test case and not the class as a whole. But the question was, was Brian Kelly really going to be able to make enough of get enough of a foothold and keep the best players in the state home? Well, we know how they finished. You end up getting Lance Hurd. You get Shelton Sampson, obviously out of Catholic High. You got Caleb Jackson out of Liberty, the running back. You got Kylan Jackson, the safety, out of Zachary. Of course, your quarterback, Ricky Collins, out of Woodlawn. So you did end up getting 5 of the top 10 players in Louisiana signed in last year's class. There were some high-profile players you didn't get, but some you knew you weren't getting. Like you weren't getting Arch Manning. You weren't getting Eli Holstein. So some of that you knew, okay? So you flip and look ahead to this year, to 2024, and say, okay, now that Brian Kelly's had a full year, and this is a full recruiting cycle, how is he going to be able to recruit the top players in the state for this year? So getting Trey'Dez Green, who's the number 2 player in Louisiana for this year, is very significant. Now, Dominic McKinley out of Acadiana, which has been a defensive lineman, has been very good to LSU. Acadiana has. He's uncommitted. Tylen Singleton, 4-star linebacker out of Manny, also uncommitted. That's the number 1 and 3 players in the state. The top 3 committed players in Louisiana for 2024. Trey'Dez Green, LSU commit. The 4th best player in the state is Deshaun McBride out of Denham Springs, committed to LSU this weekend. And Kalaj Cobbins out of Destrehan, the linebacker, who's also an LSU commit. So 3 of the top 5 players in the state are already committed to LSU, and those are the only 3 committed. And by the way, the 6th highest rated player in the state is Wardell Mack, the cornerback out of John Ehret, and 100% of the crystal balls have him ultimately picking LSU. So, and that's not to even include a guy like Juwan Johnson, who had been committed to Colorado and decommitted this past weekend, and it's likely thought he's going to end up at LSU. So all of the questions we had a year ago about Brian Kelly recruiting the state and keeping the best players home, you're starting to check those boxes and answer those questions, which is fantastic to see. The other thing that I think is very significant with respect to Trey'Dez Green is the position he plays. I know we've gone over this before, but it bears mentioning again. Brian Kelly, during his time at Notre Dame, was most known for recruiting, developing, and putting into the NFL draft 2 positions, tight end and offensive line. That was primarily where they had their most success. And when you look at the tight ends, dating back to 2011. You had Kyle Rudolph, Tyler Eifert, Troy Nicholas, Ben Koyak, Durham Smythe, Alize Mack, who the Saints picked, Cole Kmet, who was a two-sport guy. Saw him pitch against LSU as well as playing that bowl game. Tommy Tremble. You got Michael Mayer, who played for Kelly and is going to be a first-round pick in this year's draft. He recruits and develops tight ends and pumps them into the NFL. Then you look at what they did this past year with Mason Taylor. You go and get a 3-star that wasn't highly recruited, but Brian Kelly and his staff loved the prospect. They put some weight on him in the offseason, and at what was a gigantic position of need, Mason Taylor became a key contributor for you as a pass-catching tight end as a freshman, and now you look ahead and you're really optimistic about what he's going to be for you the next 2 seasons. The problem LSU has right now, as we've talked about, is tight end depth. You've got Mason Taylor, and then you signed 3 other tight ends. Mac Markway, the 4-star out of Missouri, Jackson McGowan out of Ohio, and Kamarian Pimpton, who is out of Texas. So you've got 4 scholarship tight ends going into 2023, but 3 of them are true freshmen. And Mason Taylor's just going into his sophomore year. So they are stockpiling at that position. And it's easy to see how, if you look ahead to the 2024 season, Mason Taylor will be a junior. The 3 guys you sign this year will all be sophomores, and you'll have Trey'Dez Green coming in as a freshman. Well, considering the way the transfer portal world works, it's unlikely and unrealistic to think that all 3 of the freshmen you sign this year are all going to be back for their sophomore year. And 2024, very likely, could be Mason Taylor's last year in Baton Rouge if he's a 3-year guy to the NFL. So, yes, you need to stockpile at that position, and you have a guy that's the highest rated at his position in your state, the second highest rated player in the state of Louisiana, third best tight end in the country, and he's 15 minutes from LSU's campus. Yeah, I want Trey'Dez Green. The other question that a lot of people ask is, because he's a 2-sport guy, is Trey'Dez Green a guy that may come to LSU and try to play both? We talked about that with Shea Dixon earlier this week, and there are athletes who have tried to play 2 sports during their time at LSU. But generally when you've seen it, it's been Trendon Holiday, where it's worked. It's been Trendon Holiday running track, and Benny Brazel running track and playing football. From time to time, you've seen like a Chris Jackson punt for LSU and play baseball as well. It's rare that you've seen. It's rare that you've seen it work like it did for Jared Mitchell, for example, who was a receiver and then also became a first-round pick as an outfielder. Chad Jones is notable as well, but even Chad Jones didn't commit fully to baseball. The point is, the basketball-football thing is rare. Marcus Spears tried to do both, and he's famously told the story about going and doing basketball conditioning, and that lasted about a week, and he was like, yeah, I'm good. Ronald Jones was a 2-sport guy. We've seen some try. It just very rarely sticks because of the demands of both sports. So we'll see what Trey'Dez Green elects to do. Does he try to play both at LSU? Can't answer that right now, but he will be on scholarship for football, which means that's the first priority, and that's where he'll come in and try to help Brian Kelly and the squad in 2024. And you can now look ahead to to this LSU class, and it's shaping up very nicely for 2024. Right now, they're the ninth highest rated class in the country, with 14 commits and still plenty of work to do, and that doesn't even count for what will be ultimately transfer portal additions as well, because as we know now, you really have to look for a combined ranking of your high school signees and your portal ranking when the portal window comes and goes. So a lot of time still to go before that November signing period, and then ultimately adding guys in the portal for the February period after this 2023 season ends. But a big one here on Wednesday is Trey'Dez Green, second highest rated player in the state of Louisiana for 2024, has committed to the Tigers. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.